So in the next few weeks, I'm going to be recording videos very carefully, and the reason that I say that is because some of the stuff that I'm going to discuss, like I said, I have to be very careful about it, and it will also, at least I hope it'll also help to explain that there are reasons why I haven't been able to record as many videos or post as many videos, even with Riley, and these are things where... And people are going to say, oh, you're being dramatic, you're being this, you're being whatever else, but you've seen some of my other videos before if you followed my videos over the years. And it's not necessarily easy to talk about some of the stuff that I'm going to be talking about, but I know that there will be severe repercussions for talking about it. But this is because I have dealt with stuff that just spans years, and especially with some of the increases in certain kinds of bigotry, including with Carrie Prejean Bowler's bigotry today, I was reminded of some other bigotry in my own life, and some of the bigotry, for lack of a better term, involved anti-Semitism. Some of the bigotry, I at least hope, didn't involve anti-Semitism, but it certainly involved discrimination based on my disabilities. And like I said, I can't say whether anti-Semitism was involved in addition to the ableism, but I would not be surprised if ableism was most certainly compounded by anti-Semitism. So like I said, I'm going to talk about some things in the next few weeks, and I know that I'm probably going to get in trouble, but I figure this might be the only way that I can actually start talking about some things which I haven't been able to really discuss in years. And of course, some people are going to say, oh, you've discussed that. What are you talking about? Very carefully if I've discussed it at all. So if you see some unusual videos in the next couple weeks, just know that. And of course, some people are going to victim blame me and say, like, oh, why didn't you talk about this earlier, etc., etc. Well, when I tried, I was the one who was victimized for even talking about the fact that I'd been victimized. And of course, just to disclose too, none of it, for lack of a better term, none of it was extreme in terms of sexual harassment or sexual abuse or anything. Though one instance did involve sexual harassment, and I'm going to be talking about that because that one, like I said, that one is so horrific. It's just, I don't even know how else to put it without specifically talking about it, but that one is so horrific. It began to, I guess even for me, open up a lot of, for lack of a better term, it began to open my eyes to some things that I, as a person with disabilities, had never seen before. And I'd already seen some aspects of it, but now that I'm looking back on it, it's like I should have seen certain things before, and I should have taken certain signs that I missed back then and realized, well, it's just as bad as I thought and worse. And so, like I said, I'm going to be talking about that in the next couple of weeks, and like I said, there will probably be repercussions for me talking about it, but 36 years, and I can't just sit there anymore going, yeah, I'm just going to shut up about it. And today is, on the secular calendar, today's February 11th, I think, and my great-grandmother died on the secular date of February 12th, 2007, and just before her own death, she had talked to one of my aunts about some things, and that's when I began to understand that the woman that I would see occasionally, she had the shower chair, she had the grab rail, she had the walker. I had no idea that the majority of that was not due to old age in her case. It was because of trauma we'd gone through, and it was because she couldn't talk about that trauma, and it literally ate away at her before her death. And she died partially due to gangrene. And I say partially because the story is a lot longer than that. And I've talked about it on some of it on my blog before. But it's, like I said, not being able to talk about what happened to us throughout the generations ate away at her just before her death. And she finally talked about it once it was kind of, for lack of a better term, too late. And I'm 36. She was 93 when she died. So you do the math there. Let's see, 36, and then 36 times 3 is 108. So I'm just under 3 times her age when she died. I want to try to do the exact math here, but I usually can't do math right in my head. So I'm going to be trying my best to do what I can and talk about some of the math, and I'll probably do some of the math offline and be like, oh yeah, 36 divided by 93 is whatever to whatever. And anyway, so don't be surprised if I, for lack of a better term, do get the courage to talk about why I don't post as often as I could, even with videos with Ryan Cam, and like I said too, maybe that'll help clear up for some people why I want to promote my book so much. It's really not about the money, and it's always been about the writing, and that's why I keep my books cheap on purpose. Now, some people are going to say, oh, you're just using this to promote your books. If that were the case, I assure you I would have made the books a lot more expensive initially. And some people say, well, you raised the price. Yeah, only because of the Amazon printing cost. And I will say this, when they said, oh, the printing cost is going to be like $9.99 or whatever it is. Okay, so I raised the prices pretty much all across the board for printed books to $9.99. Like I said, not, well, except for the ones that I couldn't control when that were published outside of Amazon Kindle Direct Publishing. So anyway, the point has never been about the money. And when I've written this all down, I've even had to unpublish some books just because family has gotten angry at me and they don't want me to talk about certain things and all that, for lack of a better term. And for some of them, it's like, you know, I understand you went through stuff, whatever, but for others of them, it's like, you know what? Even if I face repercussions, I'm talking about some of the things that need to be talked about, because I'm going to get to a very real point where if I don't start talking about things, even if I get into trouble for it, like great-grandma did, because believe me, she faced repercussions that, and I've talked about it on some of this on my blog too, because I was stunned when I found out what happened. It's like, if I'm going to die, I'm going to die. If anyone tries to, for lack of a better term, screw up anything on purpose, then that's what's going to happen. But it took great-grandma almost 93 years. Actually, almost 94, since she would have been 94 that July on the secular calendar, and she may have even just turned 93 during that time that she finally told her relatives what was going on. And I, unfortunately, you know, not only did, for lack of better terminology, not only did it not occur to me to not ask any questions, I didn't know how to ask some of the questions, because I didn't even think that some of the questions were applicable to us. And I even told people certain things like, oh, you know, some people would ask me, for example, if I'm Jewish, and I told them that I wasn't because I didn't know. One person on one of my videos that's since had to be hidden for multiple reasons for a while, I literally told him that I was not related to certain people in Hollywood, and I had no idea. And not only that, but I mean, when I saw this family resemblance and I read about some of the other stuff, and then the behavior, it's like, I should have known. I should have known. I don't know what happened back where. And I could easily distance myself now and say, oh, well, this and that. But I'm still related to those specific people. And knowing that some distant family is on the Epstein list, that's not just going to go away. And like I've said before, the specific family is, Kirk Douglas's family and Michael Douglas's family. Because, yeah, they are Daniloviches, and, well, guess who are relatives of mine, which I should have known. And anyway, point being, it's not just going to go away because I could say, oh, well, maybe it's such a distant relationship in this. If I don't own, oh, yeah, I'm related to so-and-so, then I become complicit in what they did. And I become complicit in repeating toxic family cycles, no matter what side of the family caused those cycles or decided that those cycles should originate or continue. So anyway, like I said, I'm just kind of giving for lack of a better term, heads up. People are going to be pissed, and I'm probably going to face repercussions, but I guess, especially too with Valentine's Day coming up, and I know this sounds narcissistic, but I'm like, you know what? Valentine's Day, with great grandma's death having occurred on the secular calendar, I think tomorrow, since I think tomorrow is February 12th. Anyway, so with great grandma's death having come up with, well, rather her year's 8 on the secular calendar, and with Valentine's Day coming up too, and with some other stuff, I'm like, you know what? If I gotta show myself some love, and if I gotta talk about things, and if I gotta show family love, even if they're gonna hate me for it, then I'm gonna start talking about some stuff, because I'm 36 years old now, and like I said, you do the math, I'm almost just 3 times under the age that great-grandma was when she died. And I can't get to a point where it's going to be too late to talk about some of the stuff. And I'll say, I should have talked about it years ago. And some people say, well, maybe you have more of an excuse because you always had physical disabilities, etc. Well, great-grandma had a lot of circumstances that prevented her from talking about a lot of stuff too. But she finally told my Aunt Mary, and I'm not going to be afraid to mention who it was, because my Aunt Mary brought it up to me when they were talking about something referring to my great-granddad, and great-grandma broke down. Aunt Mary said, oh, Grandma, I'm so sorry. And great-grandma was like, she said something along the lines of, no, it's okay. I want to talk about it. I never knew that great-grandma. I know that, she was definitely a strong woman. She was definitely a kind woman. She was one of the few relatives that I could tell was genuinely treating me and one of my cousins well. I didn't see that side of great-grandma. And I've talked about this too, by the way. I didn't see that side of great-grandma where when I heard about her, she once told my mom that she had hawked a loogie onto a neighbor's sheets. And then I've talked about this elsewhere. I had no idea at the time that I'd heard that story that neighbor happened to be my great-great-uncle Susie. And he was a shonda. And I say that because, and I had some of his descendants get pissed off at me. Well, you know what? Maybe great-great-uncle Susie shouldn't have exploited great-great-uncle Bernie, and maybe he shouldn't have treated great-grandma and great-granddad poorly. And even after great-granddad died, as far as I know, as far as I can understand when the whole incident of hawking loogie to sheets occurred, maybe great-great-uncle Susie should have treated a whole lot of people better. So I know too, by the way, that some people will be going, well, if you've already talked about this stuff, why talk about it again? Just because it happened a long time ago, and just because, oh, it's generations ago, it's this, it's whatever. Some people say, well, it's not your story to tell. Well, generational trauma, even in the smallest things, can be passed down. And I didn't know that those things were being passed down. And then it's like, that's what was happening? It's like, you know what? Not only is it my story to tell, I have a duty to talk about what happened so that it doesn't happen to other people. And that so family, whether close or distant, can never hurt anyone else again. Then I'm going to talk about what happened. And like I said, I know some people are going to get mad and say, oh, why are you talking about this? Or, oh, it's not your story to tell, or whatever else. And plenty of people will probably say, some people will just be like, oh, just ignore it, whatever. But you know what? Unfortunately, ignoring it or just pretending, for example, that, for lack of a better term, whatever, just pretending or covering up or whatever else didn't help us then, and it's not helped future generations. I'll be honest with you. That's why, as far as I know, that's why, trying to think here, this time I'm 36 years old, and my oldest cousin on my grandparents' side, she just turned, she's going to be 41 this year. Because I'm trying to think, I should rather say my dad's side. My oldest cousin on my dad's side just turned 41 this year. And I'm talking about first cousins. As far as I know, she's the only one with children. So they are my grandmother's only 2 grandchildren. So people would say, what does that have to do with anything? If you want to understand why, and not just in my family, but if you want to understand why the birth rates are falling and people are delaying marriage and people can't find relationships in the first place, etc., my family is an example of why. When we don't talk about stuff, when we pretend that stuff is okay and it's really not okay, and when just other things occur, when people try to cover up things, then other things get delayed. When things don't come to light when they need to come to light, then other things don't happen when they need to happen. And I suppose that I could cut this down, and some people say, oh, you're talking too much and this and this and this. But I'm just trying to give a very clear heads up so nobody is deceived by what I'm about to discuss.